A MIT Technology Review Brasil traz para você um conteúdo exclusivo, uma entrevista com Douglas Rushkoff. Ele é professor, teórico da comunicação e um dos pensadores mais provocativos sobre tecnologia e sociedade. Rushkoff prefere não ser chamado de futurista. Ele gosta de ser chamado de presentista, alguém focado em entender profundamente o tempo em que vivemos. Na nossa conversa, ele abordou temas centrais do nosso tempo: o futuro da internet, a relação das gerações Z e Alpha com o consumo de conteúdo e os efeitos culturais dessas plataformas. Chegou a fazer uma provocação forte. Comparou inteligência artificial à pornografia. You shocked the audience at the South by Southwest by calling for a return to the weird. Could you explain the idea and give some examples what you consider weird nowadays?
I mean, the early internet was weird. It came along with a lot of things at the same moment in culture. In the early 90s, late 80s, these were weird things like fractals and chaos math and new physics was weird, along with hypertext and the psychedelic revival and rave culture and fantasy role-playing games and cyberpunk fiction. There were a lot of people wondering about what makes the world work and what can people do if they're networked together with new kinds of technologies. And it was a wonderful several years where everybody was just making stuff and sharing it with each other and developing new modes of communication, new ways of thinking and creating together. It was this remarkable, optimistic time where we really wondered about what are the possibilities of the collective human imagination. And, shortly after that, a different group of people looked at the internet and networking technologies for how can we make money? How do we make money off this stuff? Kids sharing video games and shareware and open source and having raves. That's not good for business. That might be good for culture, but it certainly doesn't help us make money off people. So they really looked at ways of investing in technologies that could create a return. And when you're investing in a technology, you're not thinking about how can I create the greatest possibilities. You think more about how can I create the highest probability, right? You've made a bet, so you want the highest probability that that bet is going to come true. So instead of giving technologies to people to do weird and crazy things, we use technology on people to get them to behave more predictably so that the probability of these investment bets coming to fruition would go up. And now with artificial intelligence, again, we like to think, we could use these technologies to think all sorts of new stuff. But really the way artificial intelligence works is with probability engines. It looks at what is the most probable next word in this sentence. That's what it does. So it reverts everything to the mean, everything to the most probable outcome. And what I was arguing at South by Southwest was that conference even was originally started as a way of promoting the weird. The people in Silicon Valley and San Francisco, they were having conferences, but they were about business, how to maximize returns, how to do startups, how to make money. And Austin was a weird place. It had all sorts of strange stuff going on. Richard Linklater and his movie Slacker, Beavis and Butthead, the cartoon, came out of Austin. Fringeware magazine, conspiracy theory. It was a strange culture. The South by Southwest was a film festival, an alternative film festival with strange artsy movies. So we had this conference that was the other conference. It was like going to Burning Man or some strange thing. But slowly over time, it became very corporate. Elon Musk moved to Austin, all these companies moved there, and Austin became, in some ways, an even more conservative approach to technology development than Silicon Valley. So when I gave my talk, it was really saying to Austin, yo, you've lost the plot here. You've become the man. You've become the probability engine, and you got to bring back the fun, bring back the weird, or we are going to program ourselves out of existence.
Bring back the weird, bring back the fun. It's good sentence. And what is the Team Human initiative you created? Is it still viable, or we just playing by the rules written by machines?
Well, as long as there's people, Team Human is viable. The idea for Team Human came when I was on a panel with Ray Kurzweil, who's kind of a transhumanist. And he was arguing that human beings should pass the evolutionary torch to our robot successors and accept our inevitable replacement and extinction. And I said, no, human beings are special. We should keep human beings in the digital future. We engage with paradox and ambiguity and creativity, and we're strange. We can exist in the liminal spaces between things. There should be a role for people in the future. And Kurzweil said, oh, Rushkoff, you're just saying that because you're human, right? Like it was hubris. And that's when I said, right on TV, I said, fine, I'm guilty. I'm on Team Human. And that was the beginning. And then the more I thought about it, the more I liked the idea of Team Human as arguing for humanity as a team sport, that the hyper individualism of the digital age has sent us down a dark corridor where we believe in the individual, we believe in the self, and I believe in the organism, in the collective. I do believe that what distinguished human beings, what indicated our higher evolutionary status was our ability to share and to coordinate with each other. With food sharing is what human beings really excelled at, and specialization and working together. And the digital age, partly, with our iPhones, they're not we phones or us phones, they're iPhones. It's engendered this, hyper individualist, very competitive mode. And you look at our tech overlords, the people running these companies, and they're also kind of, ubermensch, supermen individuals who believe that they alone can transcend the human and become transhuman or posthuman and sprout wings or live on a server or go to Mars and, breathe space instead of air. It's ultimately, I think, an anti-human sentiment. It doesn't embrace the ground and touch and our sensuous, sexual, connected nature.
Perfect. We're still the resistance.
Yeah. And Brazil in particular, that's why it's funny when I do a talk at South by Southwest, me in particular, I think, half my audience are Brazilians,
Wow.
Way more. I have a higher percentage of Brazilians at my talks than than you'll see in the other talks in these spaces. And that's because people know when I'm talking about technology, I'm not sitting there telling you, here's how to run your business, here's how to make money, here's how to be serious with this. That what I'm bringing is the spirit of fun, of play. The highest human activities are play, are art, are magic, and those are not superstitions. They're not lower forms of activity. They're the coolest thing that we could be doing.
Efficiency has become almost an ideology for nowadays. What are we sacrificing in the name of optimizing everything with AI?
If you optimize the existing systems and institutions that we have, you're optimizing capitalism, you're optimizing colonialism, you're optimizing eugenics, you're optimizing systems that will ultimately make us extinct. But these systems, things like capitalism, can't be allowed to run their full program, right? The capitalism was never conceived of in a way that it would dominate everything, or everything is a market, everything is IP. You can't run a program to its completion in isolation, or everything else goes away. You don't want to use AI to run any program to completion. So the way that AI removes friction can be a problem, because friction is a natural governor that prevents any system from sliding, into its extreme. There's balancing forces. So the danger of AI, I find, is less some superconscious AI decides to kill us all than AI supercharges one of our existing systems. If you just give AI plus drones leads to bad things, AI plus capitalism, AI plus ultra fast trading, AI plus propaganda, any of those, AI plus precognitive crime prediction, any of those things, any of those programs allowed to run their course leads to disastrous edge cases. So I kind of look at it. I look at it that way. And how do we balance AI with the sort of human governance? And I don't necessarily mean big government, but the ability for human beings working with each other and to engage and mitigate the effects. The other issue I'm looking at is that AI has more utility value than any human being. That's what it has.
Wow.
It could do things, right? But if you only look at human beings in terms of their utility value, then you lose what human beings are for, what we are, what we do. So just because something is a better worker, does that mean you shouldn't exist anymore? No. If the AIs and the machines have more utility value, then what do we have that they don't? We have more weird value, more creative value. I can metabolize your trauma with you. I can co-regulate with you in a way that an AI can't. I may not know as much about what medications you need when you're delivering your baby, but I could be a better birth doula to you than a machine can.
But you said earlier the friction. Do you think AI is ripping off the friction of the next generations, the Gen Zs and the Alphas, and give some answers that they really want to hear, like no arguing? What do you think? The next generations will be no friction generation?
That we had one generation that was that needed safe spaces to not have any words that challenge them, and now we have a generation raised on sycophantic AIs that care more about pleasing them than telling them the truth. And will that reduce their tolerance for friction? Maybe, maybe not. I mean, I think it will have a similar effect on them as pornography did on that generation. So it entrains a different approach to learning and information and thought, the same way that porn entrained a different understanding of how sex works. If you're with a person who was raised on porn, you have to teach them how to have sex slowly, that you can feel more if you don't bang so much, right? If you don't, just slow, it's okay, right? Just sit, I'm gonna touch you just now, just feel this much, right? You have to orient them. So I do think if they're having so many frictionless experiences in these spaces, if they become parasocial spaces where where they imitate relationships.
It's not about the performance, it's about the experience, right?
Yeah, then that could be an issue, is having something. I mean, but when I was a kid, my stuffed animal, my monkey, always agreed with me. Glee. I was imagining it, but it was there. He agreed with me because the kids didn't. Just because people have sycophantic AIs doesn't mean they will necessarily want sycophantic relationships. They might actually hunger for something else. And there's a lot of people working on the AI sycophancy problem. There are ways to limit it by, putting in a lot of commands ahead of time, and they're training them to be less so. I mean, some say it's too late to fix that problem, but as long as, and hopefully we'll have more time for it if AIs are doing all the work, as long as we schedule time for young people to have human encounters with other humans. I think the opportunity here is if AI is doing more and more of our utilitarian work, then education can become way more about our social work and our civic work and our ability to be compassionate with one another.
A little less work, a little more human experience.
Fun. What depends what kind of civilization we want to live in. When you live in a pyramidal civilization like ours, a pyramid civilization, they're optimized for acquisition and control and saving. You get lots of stuff to move up the pyramid. If you live in a horizontal civilization like the late Middle Ages or many indigenous communities, you don't have a way of saving, right? You don't have bank accounts, you don't have interest. So when you get more efficient, you optimize for leisure. The better at the thing you do, the better you get, the more days off you give yourself to have fun and have sex and do that. So I'm hoping, if we come to our senses, that the increased efficiency from AI will encourage us to take more time to do other things.
Perfect. I vote for that.
Yeah.
Douglas, Mr. Rushkoff, thank you for your valuable time. It's so wonderful to talk to you again.
All right.
Glad to meet you again.
See you soon.
Wonderful to talk to you. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye.